Hello and welcome to Off My Shelves, and in this episode we're going to be looking at Blankets by Craig Thompson. So let's get underway. Now this is generally considered by many people. I hear several people saying this is the best graphic novel of all time. This is my favourite. It makes the top of many top 10 lists and top 5 lists and all that. The edition I've got is printed by Faber and Faber, and it's a paperback edition. Picked it up for second hand for the amount of money I spent on this. I think it was £4.98. Either way, it is out in hardback. The version I got has got some nice French flaps, quite a nice thick paperback cover, but glued binding. But again, black and white throughout, nice thick paper generally, and a well-made book. It is a bit smaller than your normal standard size trade paperback. But with all that out of the way, Blankets, I think a lot of people put Blankets down as almost like a traumatic book, a brutal book. But I think at its heart, it's a love story. At its heart, it's this very timeless love story of first loves. So it's all revolving around Craig and Craig's memories of his youth, going into his early teens and then falling in love for the first time, and trying to make sense of how those feelings fit into the world that has been forged in his youth. And so the book starts off with him and his brother in quite severe isolation, I would say. They basically share a bedroom, which in the summertime is extremely boiling and in the wintertime is absolutely terrifyingly cold, so much so that the blankets freeze on them and stuff like that. So environmentally, it's not a great place. Add to that the parents, in particular the father, is quite forceful and shouty. The mother is as well. And so they do a lot of harsh punishments, I would say. What sticks in Craig's mind is the punishments that his younger brother had because of his involvement. So, the book starts off with him accusing him of something, and then he basically gets put in this cubby hole and has a dreadful night, really, being locked in this little cupboard under the stairs or wherever it is. But yeah, Craig then has massive guilt about that. And a lot of this is to do with his relationship with his brother at a young age being damaged. But then him going through experiences and then seeing that he needs to reforge those relationships. But that's getting ahead. They are an extremely religious family. And so they are fully devout kind of Christians that believe the Bible almost literally in many respects. But either way, they go to school, get bullied. Craig tries to fight back often, but again doesn't really do much. He fails at school often, but he loves art, and his brother loves art as well, and they draw a lot, but they're told all the time that you can't earn any money doing that, you're never going to achieve anything. And then there's these glimpses as well of an unknown person who abuses him and his brother, and these are handled quite subtly. Abuse is going on, but you don't exactly know what it is, and you don't know the extent of it. It's almost as if they are being handheld into a room and then the door closes and something's going on, but you don't know what. And so in many respects, your imagination might be worse than reality, but either way, how can you really make that worse, I would say. But it is what it is. The childhood trauma is massive, and Craig dives deep into the Bible and tries to find solace and comfort and fulfillment through that. And so he reads it like every night, and growing up he reads it quite often, and then goes to summer camp for like Christian summer camp, and that is where he ends up falling in love for the first time. And so the first quarter of this book is a lot of stories of him as a child, even though later on in the book it does jump back to him still being a child. And so don't think that you get through a quarter, he grows up and then there's nothing more about his youth, because it still jumps back and forth between him as a child and him as a teenager, really, because they are the moments that this book is all about, and they're the most impactful moments. First and foremost, him going through a relationship and being such a devout Christian creates such deep problematic issues for Craig, because he's having these feelings, he's having these different emotions, but they oppose the religious teachings that he's had. And so, for example, he talks about he masturbated once and then never ever did it again throughout his teens, and then he thought people reading this would find it hard to believe, but he didn't, because he just was so guilt stricken by doing that. Sexualization and all that away from him add to that, whatever happened in the abuse has obviously had an impact as well. But the girl he finds, called Raina, just totally liberates himself and really redefines who he is as a person. And I think that's the biggest strength in this book, is that you have all of the darkest bits of life and humanity, all the kind of abuses of parents growing up, and even though they don't mean it maliciously, sometimes it makes a deep dent on your psyche, both physically and mentally. All of the abuses, the bullying, everything that's terrible about life, but then you've got everything that's great about life as well. It's a really life-affirming book, I think, in many ways, because it showcases that excitement of finding a first love and trying to figure out what to say and how to say it, but being fascinated by everything that person says, by just being utterly enthralled by just a glance from them, and biding your time to hear from them. You know, it's breathtakingly honest and straightforward on that first love, and any love really. You know, it genuinely portrays it in such an amazingly poignant way, but such an honest way as well, because again, he knows that he's like, there's even scenes where he is kind of depicting her as like a deity, and he's sitting around praying at her knees. You know, he idolised her on every level, and she him as well. And so when they come back from this Christian camp, they try to arrange a visit, and so it falls that he visits for a 2-week period. And just at that time, her parents are divorcing, and lots of things are going on in her life and Raina's life. She's got, you know, foster children who have different needs as well, disabilities and things like that. So their story plays out. You've got all these different layers of humanity. You've got these nasty people who are abusive, but then you've got people taking in, you know, foster kids and going above and beyond to make sure their lives are better. But then you've got how their relationships work, how that dynamic works. And Raina is going through her own issues as well. So sometimes she makes accusations or make statements that Craig just doesn't understand at all, because again, he's totally new to all this. He's got no idea what he's doing. He's never even kissed a girl up to this point, really. Everything is a first for him in this point, and you can see how much it meant to him in this book when he depicts it, because you would really see drawings of a human being that are so utterly beautiful and serene. And he's drawing it because that's how she made him feel, and that's how he saw her. Just this tonic remedy for the crappy life he was in. And yeah, and I did really enjoy it. I can tell a lot of people might not like it, you know, just because you could call it, you know, soppy in places, and you could call it like a bit too brutal and a bit too realistic in places. But ultimately, it is life. It really is life, and it depicts life. And there's some really funny scenes in it. There's some really heartbreaking scenes in it. There's some life-affirming scenes in it. There's everything going on, really. It does show life in all manner of different dimensions. And again, it's all about connections and moving forward and changing as a human being and taking people with you as well. So again, the brotherly relationship does get developed throughout it, because a lot of what happened in their youth, they separate, but events bring them back together. There's an amazing scene on this where they have a pee fight in their room, which I was laughing my head at, but I think some people will probably read it and think this is just very weird. But again, the honesty is just amazing. He really just says it how he feels. It's all from his perspective as well, I should say. You don't get any perspective from anyone else, how they were feeling, how they were acting. He can only speak to his own fears and memories of the time. And so it is really his own perception of growing up with his brother, growing up in this very hard backwater of America, and then finding his first love and traversing those waters. But I very much enjoyed it. The black and white art throughout is fantastic, and the skill he achieves in creating all these different characters, all these different faces, personalities, clothing and scenes. He does a really good job. No one person looks like another. No one person dresses like another. Everyone's got their own unique kind of style and look. And like life is, do you know what I mean? And so, yeah, it really is a beautiful book, I think, and I very much enjoyed reading it. It was a bit, sad in places, but it was wonderful in places as well. So I think it's well worth a read. It is a chunky book, but it's a very quick read as well, because again, the art says loads, really. But definitely worth a read, I think. Blankets by Craig Thompson. The 20th anniversary edition was just being released. Why not grab it and enjoy it? Thank you very much for watching. I will catch you on the next one.